Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1970s.
I'm not afraid. I even left my crucifix upstairs. A classic blunder.
This is episode 129, recorded December 16, 2020.
Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Doc Rotten, and this podcast about horror films released between 1970 and 1979. Each episode, my co-host Jeff Mohr and I will tackle another classic or not so classic film from this wondrous, groovy, gory, and influential decade. With me this week is my co-host Jeff Mohr. Jeff, sir, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad when I was young, my dad told me to save goober dust because I got a great big bag of it now.
Yes. Well, what else would you do with it, right?
I don't know.
All right. Also joining us tonight is Bill Mulligan. He's a writer, director, special effects guru, and all-around nice guy.
Thank you.
How you doing, sir?
I have not collected all my goober dust. I didn't even know goober dust was a thing, but oh well. At my age, I could have had a big pile of it by now, too.
Just slipped right through your fingers.
Yeah.
All right. Also joining us tonight is Chad Hunt. He's Comic Book Arts, co-host, Decades of Horror, Classic Era, and a cool dude. He's a cool dude. He's Goober Dust Man. How you doing, Chad?
I'm good. I'm secret for you guys. If you save that goober dust and just sprinkle it on your toilet seat every time you use it, it makes an excellent scrubber, just cleanser. Just make sure to flush it down.
What are you doing that your toilet seat needs to be scrubbed so often?
You don't want to know.
No, I don't actually. Forget I asked.
I'll send you pictures later.
No. That's really...
No, it's fine.
All right. Not even 2 minutes in. He's already gone to the toilet. Oh, jeez.
Yep, into the
toilet. All right. We are here to review another great movie from the 70s. This is from 1972. And oh my gosh, if you grew up, you saw this movie on The Late Show. If you didn't see it in the drive-ins, and we're talking about Grave of the Vampire. It was released October 13th, 1972, and on televisions everywhere for years later. Directors John Hayes, writers John Hayes, and David Chase. We'll talk about that name later. Cast includes William Smith, Michael Pataki, Lynn Peters, Diane Holden, Lieux Dressler, Ernesto Macias, and the tagline goes, "Father and son related by blood. Anyone's blood." Synopsis is: Croft, a legendary vampire, returns from sleep. Croft attacks a couple in the graveyard, raping the woman. The child born feeds only on blood from his mother's breast.
It's a hell of a synopsis.
It's not wrong, but it's horribly incomplete.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to basically give our first impression. When did we first see this movie? And that's the important part as we look back at 1970s horror films. If you're joining us for the first time, this is a lot of fun. We hope you enjoy our discussion. And there's 128 other episodes that you should check out for certain. But let's do this. After we do the first impression things, we'll talk about the film and we'll wrap things up. And then we have some feedback at the end. Jeff Mohr, you've collected that up, right?
I did.
Okay. You know what? There, Bill Mulligan, we're going to let you go first because this was your pick.
It was. So I think I'm going to be defending that choice a lot tonight.
Why did you first see this movie? What was your first impression and why did you pick this movie?
I think, like anyone who's about to turn 60 and grew up in New York, I probably saw it on late night TV on Channel 11 or Channel 9, Chiller Theater, Creature Features. It probably wasn't Creature Features. They were mostly the classics. This, I'd heard of it, and it was on a lot. And then when the video decade came along, if you ever buy one of those 50 horror movies for 10 cents collections of public domain stuff,
this is in
Grave of the Vampire is almost always there. It looks like absolute garbage. It's been filtered through coffee filters. It's just blurry and awful looking. So it's really nice that now you can actually, if you search around, you may have to look, if you just say, Alexa, where's Grave of the Vampire streaming? Okay, check the various versions and pick the best one because there's still crap out there and there's a few good ones. It finally got I can't remember which company finally released it on Blu-ray and it looks much, much, much better. And my first impression watching is that, damn, this is sleazy. because I think I was kind of, vampire movies were Bela Lugosi, and I may have seen this before I saw Hammer. So this might have been my real introduction to a more adult, modern, grindhousey vampire. So I think it had a big influence on me. I mean, I didn't think it was certainly not as good as the Bela Lugosi ones, but it was definitely more modern, and I think drove home something I've always felt and definitely feel now, and this might have been one of the reasons. Vampires are detestable creatures that are really awful vermin and should be exterminated. And I felt that way ever since. So, that's my whole thing about Twilight. I'm not going to trash Twilight. People love it. But any movie that treats vampires as anything other than things that need to be destroyed, it kind of sticks in my craw. So, and this may be the most detestable vampire ever. I thought it was the guy in Vampire Circus, but he's a debonair man about town compared to this bastard.
Is he?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, let's find out what Chad thought. Chad, when did you first see Grave of the Vampire, and what was your first impression?
Oh my god! I saw this on TV as a kid growing up.
Yes.
And I hated it then, and damn it if I don't hate it now.
You hated it then, hate it now.
I cannot stand this movie. It is so, and not to take away from Bill. I mean, everybody has their movie that puts an impact on them. And
go ahead, don't sugarcoat
it. But God damn, I hate this movie. It's just such a sluggish. I watched this on Amazon Prime. I wrote Jeff Bezos a letter and said, "Dear sir, thank you for putting the 10-second fast forward button on your Amazon Prime Video, because I wore that shit out."
Wow.
But I see. Oh my God! I just the only parts that I do like are with Michael Pataki playing the vampire. That's the best parts. Otherwise, you're just watching people go at each other the whole movie, and I just, oh my God. But anyway, that's the impression it left on me.
So you're saying you didn't like it?
A little bit. A little bit.
All right, Jeff Mohr, sir. When did you first see this wonderful classic, and what was your first impression?
Well, believe it or not, I just saw this because I don't live on the East Coast where they showed this stuff a bunch of times in the 70s,
Yeah.
apparently. I don't remember this ever being out there. Not saying I couldn't have missed it, but at any rate, I like this. Huge flaws, but I really like the story. It's just the execution is just not good. And even though we don't see we don't see much blood. Well, and I'm thinking mostly, I'm a William Smith fan, but I don't know what the deal was here. I think he was supposed to be a strong silent type, and he was just way too silent, and it didn't emote much emotion until the very end, and then it was pretty overwrought. But the kills were awesome. I mean, first he breaks a guy's back over a gravestone, right, and then sucks him dry. Then he breaks a woman's neck, and then pounds her skull in with some kind of tool, I don't know, a hand pick or something, sucks her dry, and then the woman has a baby, and she says, "Oh, why is he so pale and cold?" And then dribbles blood on the baby's face, and then cuts her breast. Oh, that cuts her breast so the baby can feed, and then kills a woman with a broken bottle that she was trying to use to defend herself, strangles the beautiful librarian, slices Anita's throat, who thinks that he's going to turn her into a vampire. But as Bill says, you can't trust those guys. And then he kills off these 4 seance goers all at once, so, and there's kind of a nice fire gag in there too.
Yeah, pretty good fire gag.
So I like the story. I like the concept. I just didn't like it should have been scarier and more gruesome and more atmospheric and all that stuff.
I'm going to agree with you a lot tonight, I think, Jeff.
Yeah, it tried to. I mean, it had the makeup on him at first. You know, he was old coming out of the grave. I mean, it had the right ideas. Yeah. I think the execution you're on track with that.
We do know that. Well, I'm sorry, but I was going to say we do know the director also did porn films, so I'm not sure that this scaring people. Yeah.
We'll talk about the director. He's more interesting than you might think, but yeah. I do feel there's a disconnect here between the writer, who went on to great stuff, and this film, which has some genuinely bad dialogue that I feel was probably not in the original script by the writer. And I don't know that for sure, because when they interview him, they never mention this film. Wonder why? But I just have a feeling that he had a better idea. He had some. There's so many good ideas in this, but yeah, the execution, something happened.
Something happened. All right, I also saw this on. I saw it on Channel 20, which is Count Gordeval. I'm sure at least once, maybe twice. I remember seeing it. I remember Michael Pataki's Vampire. I remember the beginning. I remember the end with these multiple fang things. I didn't hate it, but it didn't win me over. Let's put it this way: I was never drawn to go back and see it again in the how many years it's been since the 70s. Not that I necessarily was staying away from it. It just it was like I saw it. That's all I needed.
And they're done that.
Yeah. So we picked it, and every time that it had come in front of my eyes, that it was those crappy versions. So I was not all about that. I mean, it was even, the weird framing of it. It was
and you can't even read the credits. They're so
it's horrible. But I will say there are some really good versions of this out online now, and thank gosh for that. Because this is going to be. There are many in the 70s that fall into this category of guilty pleasure, and this is one of them. I don't know what's wrong with Chad. I don't know why.
Where do we begin?
There's a lot of things wrong with me that has nothing to do with this movie.
Where else do you get the vampire that comes out of the grave immediately spawns right out of the bat? Just
kill the guy, rapes a woman in his coffin.
I'm ready to go. I'm Papa. He's ready, and then you.
I forgot the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. We've got enough deaths. We don't need any more lists of deaths. And then immediately, it fast forwards, to his grown son, chasing him across the country.
Now by immediately, we mean a half an hour into the movie. This has got a weird structure. How many movies, like you get a whole half an hour and then all those people, forget about them.
Yeah,
we're going now. It's 30 years later, and a whole bunch of new characters show up. That's
it. Literally has a full arc in the first half hour. With the police officer, buying it at the end. I don't know. There's something special about this movie. And not that it stinks, but is it a good movie? And that's why it's
bad.
That's why it's a guilty pleasure, right? That's why it sits next to probably 3 or 4 dozen other 70s horror films that I can't get enough of. Yeah.
One of the reasons that I hate it so much is I feel like it's a wasted concept. A vampire, a son who's spawned from and looks to seek out. There was not enough of that storyline, I guess, and it really aggravates me that I just felt like that whole thing was just a wasted thing.
It was not exploited to its full extent. So let me just say right off the bat, one of the reasons why I picked this movie, one of the reasons why I kind of love this movie, even though I really shouldn't, because everything Chad says is going to be true. I would desperately love to remake this movie.
Oh man, I'd like to see
I would so want to remake this movie. And there's a secret project I still can't talk about. I wrote a script for a remake of a film we all know, and maybe it'll get done, maybe it won't. With COVID and everything's been kind of put on hold and everything. But the experience of writing a remake, and I'm like, I hate remakes. So why don't they be original? I loved doing it. I loved taking something that already had a lot of good elements, but was dated, and brought modern and fixing a few things and changing a few characters. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, you can fix a lot of things that may not have worked the first time. Oh, this movie could be great. This could be so good. And a lot of the flaws, I think, could be fixed. Now, a lot of the things that make this movie unique, you could say, this is Blade. The idea of the child of vampirism coming back and hunting, his father and everything. So some of that's already been kind of done. And this actually predates even the comic book version of Blade, which I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first movies, one of the only movies I can think of where we actually have vampire versus vampire action, sort of, I guess, at the end, whether, Will Smith is, I don't want to give away the ending, except if you look at the cover of most of the DVD releases, it's the last shot of the movie, which gives away the ending. Good choice, guys. I just think there are so many cool elements of the story. And then there's things that are baffling. Why does this vampire even show up? Why does he come out of the grave of the vampire at the beginning? There's no reason for him to show up. And they could have done anything. They could have had these two making out on the tomb and a little bit of blood gets in there and then he comes out. But no, he just shows up looking all wrinkly and paper mache like and all because it's good timing. I think I agree that the stuff about the son, the avenging son and all, he looks like he's 40 years old. He's waited a good long time to go get his revenge.
Actually, I think he is 40 years old. Yeah.
See, he
39, 40.
And I think we get into the casting and everything. William Smith, I like William Smith. I don't think he was given much to do in this movie, except like you were saying, strong silent type. I think he was miscast because the whole premise ought to be that this kid, this son, is trying to get vengeance on his vampire dad. And at no point should we believe it's going to be easy. But I think William Smith can pretty much kick anyone's ass. Certainly can kick Mr. Pataki's ass. I mean,
oh yeah.
So if it comes down to a fight between these two, we all are going to put our money on William Smith. I think, the vampire should have been more physically imposing, although Pataki's great. I'd leave him as it is. But the child, and one of the changes I would make is that it would be a daughter, not a son, should at least look like he or she is not going to have an easy time of this.
Right.
But I love this movie. The more I talk about it, the more I want to make this movie.
Well, we should talk. It came out, like we said, October 13th, 1972. The budget was $50,000.
That's believable.
$50,000. To have no idea how much money it made. It was shot in 11 days. That's actually a fairly decent amount of time to make the movie.
Sure.
William Smith, who's top billed, doesn't appear on screen until 35 minutes into the film. Yes.
But the grave is there in the opening moment, so there is.
Yes, it starts. It literally starts with hearing the breathing of him in the grave.
For way too long.
Yeah. So,
those darn kids didn't want to wait and watch the stripper, so they went to their death.
They did. They went off to go, and they seemed to like it. Why do you like to be in the graveyard? Because we're never alone. Really? Yeah, that's what. Wow.
God, there's a lie.
And it is kind of impressive, Jeff. Like you said, he lifts the guy up and throws him on the tombstone. It's cut and shot, so you don't see it the way we're describing it, the way you would imagine it in your head. But
it's well shot.
It is well shot, well edited. I'm not saying
the lighting was good. Watching this, I was thinking children shouldn't play with dead things, and the backlighting, the fog, and everything. That they squeezed a lot of atmosphere out of very limited sets and all.
It definitely shows the heyday of drive-in, because this is a drive-in movie. If there was one, totally right. I mean, it's just made like a drive-in movie. It has a full story in the first 30 minutes, so you don't get bored, and then you have an hour-long follow-up, and you're in, you get a break to go get the popcorn.
Did you just say you don't get bored? Did you really say that?
I wasn't really bored with this movie. I mean, at least not through the first part. But
I thought the first 30 minutes was solid. Had even a pretty good jump scare with the scene where he's in the basement, and the woman's like, and there they are lit together. I thought that was pretty cool. This movie does make up its own rules. The vampire was killed by electricity. Okay. He rises 3 years later, I don't know why, he has fangs, but he doesn't kill people by biting them. He kills them, and then he drinks their blood. I don't even know why he needs fangs. All right. Apparently the only way to make a vampire is not by doing any of the old things. Or at least we never see him do that. The only way to make a vampire is to rape someone. And that was a shock to me, because I don't know if this was the first movie I'd ever seen that there was a rape, but it had to be one of the first ones. And wow, that's so repellent. It's just so horrible and everything. And really, this guy is so despicable. He has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. He doesn't even have the decency to come up with a good disguise. He looks exactly like himself teaching college. This is the second worst disguise in the history of the movies. The first being old Ben Kenobi from Star Wars, which I still can't believe he got away with. I wonder whatever happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't know. Let's ask old Ben Kenobi. Wait a minute. No. So, but the idea of a vampire teaching night school is a pretty good. Because I've had some night school professors, and I can believe they were monsters.
I like the idea that he was, he basically was chasing him around the world as he went from job to job to job.
We should have seen it. Yeah.
Yeah. But we only get it when he catches up with him. I don't know. It has a night school element to it, because it's all the adults, so you don't have to deal with all the younger students and all that crap.
Yeah. Right. That's true.
So you can cast it differently, and they have their wild adult parties.
He's not even a good professor. He's not even a good professor. His opening, classroom he's like Severus Snape. He just sort of comes in there and basically insults all of his students. And some of you may be able to glean some knowledge from them, be my victims. Like, he's a jerk. Yeah. And the one person who calls him out is the librarian. What was that scene all about? The librarian who's like coming on to him, and then all of a sudden she's like, ha ha ha, knows, so this is her thing, and he's outraged. I love that. It made no sense. I don't know why it was in the movie, but the fact that this guy who's so used to seducing and killing women.
Yes.
Has the thing turned on him and is outraged. He is so upset. This is the angriest you're ever going to see this guy.
Why did he want the book? What was the book about? I forget.
It had the history thing in it.
Oh, it had a picture of him.
It had a picture of him in it.
It probably had a picture of him in it, and he realized, oh, wait a minute, I haven't made any effort whatsoever to disguise who I am.
So, your hair's still the same.
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute.
Good styles never die. Good styles never die. All right. So does this movie scream 70s? Oh, yeah.
Filmmaking wise, yeah. It's, here's something else. It occurred as I'm watching the movie. And boy, we've got to pick some upper level movies, because my wife is starting to look at me like, do you guys deliberately pick stuff that destroys your brain cells? So the opening, they said, apparently took place like in the 1930s or something. I was trying to figure out the timeline, because she said something about, he was electrocuted in 1930, and then 3 years later be 33. And I don't know, how old is William Smith supposed to be? I guess if he's 40, that does make sense. The timing would be right.
Yeah. Well, if he's part vampire, he probably ages slow too. But they never showed us that.
See, that's a mistake too, because the whole thing of when he sees his mother in the coffin, that should be her like 20 years later. She should be in her 40s, but she looks like she's 102.
Yeah, she does look like 102.
That's a cool concept, that she's not only been feeding him her blood, but more importantly, she's been giving her life essence. She's a really interesting character. This whole, she's crazy, obsessed and everything. She loves her child. Singing that creepy ass little song as she's feeding him and everything. The whole scene where she discovers that she can nurse him with blood is pretty darn creepy.
Yeah, it is.
And I think it was heavily edited, because I don't remember seeing, when I watched it on TV, I think they cut out the scenes where the drops of blood hit the baby on the face, which is very effective. And in fact, in one of the trailers I've seen for this movie, they actually have a thing coming up. If you are offended by the thought of a woman nursing her child with blood, don't go see this movie. I'm like, ooh, take my money.
Nice.
It just
nice.
didn't go far enough.
There you go.
Yeah, there we
A
go.
little nighttime love in the graveyard.
He's such a dirt bag.
Literally, right there.
And it's creepy when they're like making out hot and heavy in the car, and we just pan over, and he's like literally he's got his face pressed against the window. I was like, oh yeah, perv.
Well, and then okay.
Let's see your hands, vampire.
There was the time when what was her name? Joan? Was that the one that liked William Smith's character? The one with the short blonde hair. She's in the shower.
Yeah,
she finds her friend, and then he comes up from the outside of the shower, plasters his face against it, and leaves. And she doesn't know that that's who it is because they're getting ready to go to a seance that he's leading.
Yeah, it looks just like him. Yeah. Hey, but then again, okay. But if we're going to talk about illogic, you find your friend dead in the shower. First of all, who takes a shower and doesn't know there's a dead body in the shower? But okay, maybe she had soap in her eyes. But you find your roommate dead in the shower, murdered clearly. I pretty much cancel my evening plans from that point on. Maybe. I was going to go to Applebee's. And then go to a movie. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to Applebee's that night. I'm not going to anything. I'm going to curl up in a fetal position and try to forget the horror that's happened there. But no, that just happened. And then they're like, "Lardy-dardy-dar," and off they go. And
how'd that go?
Lardy-dardy-dar.
Yeah. They have some weird thing about cake. I don't know.
There you go. Hey. Literally, or is it? Right.
Oh, that's unforgivable. And also, clearly, they did not fit his mouth for those fangs. I mean, they just went to
probably the same one Pataki was using.
They look like they're curled in. You know, they're like, I don't know.
They look like the ones that you got with your Barnabas Collins game or something.
They do. They look like he might be able to
chew bought at the dime store.
Bubbles with him later, yeah.
If he opened his mouth just a little bit more, they would have fallen onto the floor and ruined the illusion. So
yeah, they came in a mesh bag with red, green, purple ones.
There you go. There you go.
Well, he sure looks studly.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Look at him.
I mean,
boy,
that collar looks like two paper airplanes. Just
over here. Yeah, look at that. I like the two girls, the roommates. They were fun.
Yeah. They were fun. Too.
I don't know. Like I said, guilty pleasure. Guilty pleasure.
Yeah, good old Anita. She went evil desires right away there. You know, ulterior motives.
Yeah, that was a cool thing that she figured
right away before you knew what was going. First, she makes a pass at William Smith. I forget his name, Steve, and then he turns her down, and then boom, turned me into a vampire. I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's telling that she figured it out so quickly because, again, he's made no effort to hide this. Because up to that point, I liked, one of the things I liked is he, so he kills, drinks some blood. It's been 3 years, rapes someone. That's awful. But then his next thing is the sun's coming up. I gots to move. And he runs and breaks into a basement, which is exactly what a vampire should do, break into a basement. And then the poor woman who's making, I don't know what the hell she was making. It just looked like she was throwing everything into a bowl and mixing it. It was like, ugh. But we'll never know because she hears a sound, thinks it's raccoons. And like no woman in real life, or most men for that matter, goes down to investigate the noise in the basement. And, there he is. Yeah. But then I guess, I don't know. Then he just spends the next 40 years just running around teaching occult and killing people and nobody makes a connection.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure he runs around because watching it this time, I realized when they get to the thing with the cops, and we don't talk about the great misdirection with the cop. They mentioned maybe you should check out that university that's nearby. And I'm listening to that. It's like, wait a minute. Is that the university that he's going to end up teaching? This guy literally is hiding in plain sight. Hasn't even bothered to travel across the country. I mean, he was electrocuted in Boston and got buried way far away. Why? Reasons. And, I think I'm with Goober. I'm with Mr. Dust here that maybe we should have seen a little bit more of, William Smith's been searching for this guy and maybe he's sort of given up and, but then for some reason, there's a reason why he decides to go do this. Because if he's been spending 40 years looking for this guy, He's no detective.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and start talking about the director, because you've got something to say about him, John Hayes, who is an Academy Award nominated director for a short in 1958. But you said he directed.
I think I've got a graphic with some of his films there, but I left out the one that is probably another one we'll eventually do, which is Garden of the Dead, a zombie movie that's one of the first ones to have like walking, talking, thinking zombies. I mean, this guy is exploitation. He's got, cutthroats. He's got hillbilly stuff, Mama's Dirty Girls, End of the World, terrible movie. But he's got this one, The Hang Up. And I don't know how easy it would be for anyone to find this, but that movie is like a 1968, 69. If it had been shot a few years later, it probably would have been a hardcore porn, but it was, so it's sort of at that softcore thing. This movie is like the death of film noir, because you can see the plot and everything about it. 10 years earlier, it would have been a kind of cool little late film noirish thing. 10 years later, it would have been a porno movie, and it hit at just the right time. It's one of the most depressing police procedurals with lots of nudity in it, but it's really well made. This guy had talent. Like you say, he started with an Academy Award nomination for a short film, and I guess by most standards, you'd say it's downhill ever since. I mean, he did end up with his last few movies, I think, were hardcore porn stuff.
Baby Rosemary,
the hot box or the hot lunch or something.
Hot lunch, yeah,
hot lunch. And I'm not familiar with those particular ones, but the guy did have talent and brought something to the table. I mean, I think as for all the mistakes this film has, and I think isn't he also one of the screenwriters?
He says film treatment or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Because this feels like a good script that got changed. I feel like there's a lot of weird false starts and everything. And if this were the only script that David Chase made, of like, okay, maybe it wasn't that good. But this guy went on to do great stuff. And
he won like 7 Emmys, I think.
Yeah. He knows how to write dialogue, and dialogue is not like, if dead people could eat, they'd eat cake, or whatever the hell that line was. That was so awful. So
you got to start somewhere, right? So
I guess
he's cutting his fangs on this.
Well, one of the big mysteries that I've researched this film is that it is based on a novel that no one can find.
Wasn't it one of the Anno Dracula novels?
It's based on a novel called The Still Life by David Chase. Except here's the thing: no one can find this novel. There's no record of it. No one has a copy, and that's on the IMDb. So it's either that was one of those mistakes that gets put into IMDb and then repeated forever, or I'm thinking this was something he wrote but never actually published. So he had a novel, he decided to turn it into a screenplay, which may explain some of the holes in the plot. It's not always easy to do that, to start cutting. Or he probably wrote a 2-hour screenplay. This is my theory, based on nothing. He wrote a 2-hour screenplay, and the director came in and said, just started randomly ripping out pages until it got down to a decent length. And this is what we ended up with. I don't think he was too happy with the result. But I would love to interview this guy. So in part that I could beg him, can I please remake this movie? And you're like, Bill, it's in the public domain, which it may well be, but I would never remake anything that didn't have the blessing of the original people. That seems,
Yeah, I mean, he wrote the Rockford Files. He did Kolchak the Night Stalker. He did 8 episodes of it, including the Spanish Moss Murders, one of my favorite ones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Of course.
Just all kinds of TV. And then, of course, he created and wrote The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Which will go down in TV history as one of the best shows.
Right? Great characters, great plotting, wonderful story arcs, great dialogue, and none of that is terribly evident here.
No, it might not be. All right. What can we say about Will Smith? Because you guys were mentioning that you talked about him on the 80s recently.
Yeah, he played Lieutenant Ripley in Maniac Cop. he's been in Conan the Barbarian as Conan's father when Conan was a kid. I think we went on and ran through a lot of his roles, but been around a long time. And I really like William Smith. He's there's something about him that he's a presence, you know.
Yeah.
Your eyes drawn to him when he's on screen. It's just that he's not given anything to do here, really.
No, you're absolutely right.
Just stand there and look pretty. And, you know, I think he's a little bit better than that. You know,
he did a movie in the 70s called CC and Company that starred Joe Namath and Anne Margaret.
Wow.
They were like in this biker club. I think Joe Namath is trying to save Anne Margaret from the bikers, and I think William Smith plays the head of the biker gang. But Sid Haig's in that too.
Okay.
Oh man. Yeah, he played Moon. His name was Moon.
William Smith's name, yeah.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners might know him from Any Which Way You Can, where he fought Clint Eastwood at the end.
And was a credible. I mean, you could credibly believe that William Smith could hold his own against, you know, Prime.
Not many people can line up in that line.
Right.
No.
Right.
And it was a great fight. It was a great fight in that movie.
Yeah. Well, and when we were talking on 80s, we start scrolling down. Geez, when did this guy start? You know, he's got 200 and some credits, and his very first movie was The Ghost of Frankenstein in the early 40s. He was a child in the courtroom.
He was just a little guy.
God. Yeah. I would love to interview. 9 years old or something. So, you know, he's like, who would you like to interview? To me, the best interviews, if you want to have a great time, and interview people like Sid Haig and William Smith, who have been in literally hundreds of movies. They're character actors, so they may not have always been the star, but they were in a lot of movies and got to act with a lot of people and probably know a lot of dirt and good stories that will make for an entertaining interview. So.
He played Adonis in the Batman episode with isn't that right? With Minerva,
yeah, it was Minerva, Mayhem, and Millionaires. He just played one of her little minions. That's cool. Zsa Zsa Gabor's minions.
Yeah.
Wow. If you're going to, you might as well be Zsa Zsa Gabor. Michael Pataki. As much as I look back and go, I know who this William Smith is guy. I don't really know when I knew him. Michael Pataki is the same way. There's somehow he got into my 70s lexicon, and I
bet I know where, Doc.
Where? Well, I think it might be Happy Days.
I think it might be Sergeant Barbera from the old Spider-Man TV show.
Oh,
it might be Sergeant Barbera from the old TV show. Yeah,
that's the one I was trying to think of.
God.
Yes,
that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Oh my gosh, you aren't kidding. Oh my God, that's right. Yeah. Oh man. But Fonzie Loves Pinky. He was Count. That was a big deal when that 3-part.
Yes, it was Pinky Tuscanero.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If you guys remember the Trouble with Tribbles episode of Star Trek, he was the bar fight from the Trouble with Tribbles. He was the clean.
Oh right.
Bar fight, yeah.
Oh, and he was a real jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the jerk Klingon. You know, this guy really plays jerks well, and that's a gift. You can, you know, yeah. But he also, I remember he was the sergeant in Spider-Man. He wasn't a jerk there, but he was, you know, I'm trying to remember.
Kind of was.
I guess. You know, you got to catch Spider-Man because that's the whole idea and everything. But he wasn't I guess he was the J. Jonah Jameson stand-in.
Yeah.
Well,
he kind of was. He kind of was Spider-Man's foil a little bit. Now.
I thought maybe more Captain Stacy, but not because they couldn't use Captain Stacy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Flying Nun. He was in Flying.
He was in a lot of stuff. I mean, that was a cool time to be a working actor because
60s, 70s, and 80s. He just is in everything. It seems like.
Well, he was in Return of Count Yorga, so remember that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Although he's uncredited. Everybody's Bonanza.
It's an interesting thing. Back then, being a working actor, a character actor, you could probably make a fairly decent living because there were so many TV shows. And you can say, well, there's even more TV shows now. Yeah, but the shows we have now have like a cast, and we follow the same cast throughout the whole thing. Back in those days, the Flying Nun had to meet a whole new cast of characters. There were like 3 regulars, and then there were the people who showed up for one episode, had a problem, and it was solved by the fact that this nun could fly.
Yeah.
And then their story's over. Goodbye. Here's the paycheck, and next week here's Michael Pataki.
Plus, they had 30 and 35 episodes a year. You know,
Yeah.
But Michael Pataki was Roberto in 10 episodes. He played,
Oh.
so he was on like a season.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So he needed a nun who could fly more than once.
I'll bet that's that picture on his IMDb page. He has kind of a peasant, big, broad peasant hat on.
Maybe.
What a strange. Also, what a great time to be alive that you could walk into a studio and say, listen, JC, I got this great idea. It's Sally Fields is a nun. I'm liking it already. Oh, it gets better. You know those goofy habits they wear? Because of her, I don't know, body metrics or whatever, when the wind blows just right, she flies with it. Boom, you're a genius. You know, we're going to make this thing. And he doesn't get kicked out and sent to an insane asylum. No, he's given showrunner status, and they make this into a TV show. And America is sitting at home like, yeah, I could see that happening. Those hats are kind of
goes to the convent and flies.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember a show called Paul Sand and Friends and Lovers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he was in that. He was Charlie Dreyfus. Yeah, there you go. And I remember looking at it, I'm like, oh God, yeah, Paul Sand. I remember him, but why?
Probably from Paul Sand in Friends and Lovers. Paul Sand was one of these guys. I don't know.
Penny
He must have
Marshall.
known. Yeah, I think maybe he was on Rhoda or something. He did. It was a weird thing. I remember watching it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of entertaining, but who the hell is Paul Sand that he gets to, you know, it wouldn't be like Vincent Price in Armageddon, the hell out of here, whatever. You know, I could get that, but Paul Sand was he a movie star that suddenly decided to make TV? No, he was just a guy. But
he was a comedian, right?
Yeah, but he wasn't.
Well, they still show up like that. You know, they'll have somebody that started, you know, that's starring in a show that has their name on it, and and everybody acts like I'm supposed to know who they are, and I have no idea. You know, like maybe they made a name in some other entertainment. I don't know, on stage or musicals or something.
Or maybe they're just being bold. Maybe they're just going to assume we're just going to pretend like this guy's important. Like, I'm Rula Lenska. I'm like, whoa, hey, Dad, who's Rula Lenska? He's like, how the hell would I know? Nobody knew who she was, but she came on the ad and said, I'm Rula Lenska, and we believed it. And, okay, yeah.
And it was a memorable name. You got to have a memorable name. Yeah,
sure.
Rula Lenska.
Right. You got to be able to spell it.
Like Pataki.
Well, Lynn Peters who's in this movie, is also on Batman.
Wow.
She played Lady Prudence.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
And this was her last film. This was so good. She was like, I'm done. I don't have to do anymore. This is the best film ever.
Ain't going to get any better than this.
No, she was in Get Smart. TV movie called Fear No Evil. Hogan's
Heroes, yeah.
Elsa. Everybody played an Elsa.
Yeah.
Hogan's Heroes. Oh my God. I liked her. I like both of them. I like the Diane Holden character too, who I thought I was actually kind of bummed when she got her throat slit so early in the story.
Yeah.
I thought she was pretty good, but her filmography is very short, ending with a movie called Black Starlet after this, and then she was in Mannix and Adam 12. But I'm kind of surprised because she has a look that would work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe it's hindsight. I don't know. Do we have a good? I mean, that's not going to show us what.
No, not a good show there.
Let's see. Do we have
I don't think I have.
There she is, right there, here and here.
Oh yeah, she was cool. And look, this movie does have a couple unexpected twists. If people watching it for the first time would be forgiven to believe that the police captain in the first 30 minutes is going to be a major character. His demise came as a bit of a shock to me. It's like, whoa, okay, well, I guess we're not following his story arc.
I guess we're not doing that. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Exactly what happened. We just lost Jeff. Just got sucked into the nether zone. There he goes. Look at him spin.
So
I thought he left something on the screen.
if the characters were a little better defined, if we like them a little bit more, I think this movie would be one of those where you really would feel like, oh gosh, I don't know what's going to happen next, because they're killing. I thought this woman was going to be a big deal, and they're gone. So maybe William Smith's not going to make it either. Why did the cop believe that? He was quick to believe vampires. This is the one cop in movie history who actually believes that a vampire is loose, but we're not given any reason, because, like, you know,
outside of Kolchak. Well,
yeah, I believe.
Right.
I'm quick to believe. I always assume it's vampires or werewolves whenever I hear about any murder. But if they said to me, "Oh yeah, it's the guy who was electrocuted 3 years ago," it's like, oh well, I guess at least he's not a vampire, because that doesn't follow canon. But he's quick to believe it for no reason, and for all the good it does him. So there you go. Usually it's the cops deny, and they let the vampire run rampant. But this guy, from the get-go, knows that there's a vampire, and it still doesn't do him a damn bit of good.
Doesn't do a damn bit of good.
They were going to blame it on old Zach.
Yeah,
I love those guys. You know, you had the Well, we got to talk about old Zach too, but I love those two cops. We had one that was, you know, all Mr. Natty dressed, double-breasted suit, button-down collar, perfect knot on his tie, very official. The other guy's got a sports jacket, unevenly tied tie, crooked knot, kind of dumpy looking, pretty rough around the edges. It was, I don't know why. I was kind of ticked off that he didn't come back on, that there was a little more screen
I would have
time,
followed a movie with those two. That's like X-Files before the time. You know?
Yeah, no kidding. One thing we haven't mentioned a lot is the whole seance and bringing back. They tried to bring back this Sarah character, right? The old Sarah, but instead Anita comes back. Isn't that the greatest thing ever?
That's the most baffling part of this movie, is that whole seance scene, which just sort of comes out of nowhere. It doesn't make sense that he would do it. It doesn't make sense that she would be there after her roommate dies. It's really cool that they bring the wrong person back. I like that. That's pretty neat. And I guess it does drive the climax, because it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to have to kill everybody. And I'm like, dude, you've been killing a lot of people in the last 24 hours. I don't think you're going to get tenure.
I think, well, William Smith's the one that called her, right? His character, apparently.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, that's what they said.
Okay.
There was a real quick line back and forth that, because I at first I couldn't figure it out, and then I realized he actually, when he says somebody's resisting me, and then he says, "Oh, okay, now that's better." And then when it's her, he says, "It was you. You've called Anita."
All right. Well, we should wrap this up, because we've got some feedback to go before we're done. So
I could talk about this movie for hours. The more I talk about it, the more I love this.
I got one more little thing, Doc.
Sure.
Jay Adler.
Tell us about your little thing.
It's rather personal.
But it's well, never mind. I was going to say something that probably wasn't going to come out right. So, Jay Adler plays this kind of drunk old Zach that saw what happened, right?
Yeah.
Well, Jay Adler is a great character actor. There's been tons of stuff. The thing I recognize him from is The Killing, the Stanley Kubrick noir film in the 50s. But his sister is Stella Adler, the famous acting teacher that instructed Marlon Brando and brought the what is it, the Stanis God dang,
like method acting kind of thing, or
method. It's the method. Brought the method in. I can't think of the guy's name now. Stanislavski. That's not right though. I'm butchering it. But anyway, yeah.
All
right. He was fun in his brief little scene. So
yeah, he was.
That's interesting.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Let's give our final thoughts, our recommendation. If you want to call out a favorite scene, a favorite actor, maybe you want to talk about Jay some more. Let's do that. Bill, you are up first since this is your baby.
Look, okay, I'm not going to say this is for all tastes. It is a low budget, grindhousey movie with an unpleasant premise, but I think it's got lots of cool ideas. Not always the best execution. But of all the films out there, I think this really does deserve a remake. And if anyone's interested, I will work cheap I will.
Yeah,
I've got all kinds of ideas for this one. So, but again, we got to get Chase's permission because this obviously was a project close to his heart, and also he made a show about the mob. And for all I know, he's got friends in the mob. I'm not going to tick off the guy who created The Sopranos. Not going to happen.
He'd be taking you out into the woods for a little while.
Yeah, the Pine Barrens.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. The only thing is, I'm just going to say this right now. If this happens, you have to label the water bottles correctly.
One mistake, and I never live this down.
You'll never live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chad Hunt, sir, what about you?
I will never watch this movie again. Well, I'll say this. Like I said, I did enjoy the scenes with Pataki. He did make a pretty nasty, the way I like vampires, and me and Bill have talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Vampires should be just despicable things that you want to hate. And he did do that very well. It's just some of the issues I have are the pacing, the story concepts that should have been delved into a little bit more that weren't, and that kind of thing. And that just made it a little bit of a slog for me to watch. And but I guess it does have little bits and pieces that are good, but not enough to make me watch it again. I don't care if he is in with the mob. Please kill me.
Wow.
Oh my God. Bury me in the woods. All right, Jeff, sir. What about you? Any final thoughts?
Well, I agree with everything we're all saying. Yeah, it's got major problems. It's not. There are some slow parts in there where they're, but it's just weird. If you made this now, there's like a sex scene with no sex. There's a rape scene with no sex. There's a nursing the baby with no breast, and then there's all these kill scenes with no gore. You see blood, but you never really see the details, and it could be, I think, a lot more atmospheric. So anyway, I think it's worth a watch, and I almost bought the Blu-ray to hear the commentaries. I think it's Scream Factory did it.
Mm-hmm. So 2019. I think
yeah, just to see if they talked about some of the stuff Bill mentioned. Like where did this come from? And
who did the commentary?
I can't remember because I've looked at so many Blu-rays recently. My brain wants to say Steve Haberman, but I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look that
I'm
up.
glad you pulled that. That's amazing you pulled that.
But anyway, I think I'm done. I like the baby, the blood dripping on the baby's face. That was just like so creepy.
Yeah. That baby there.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Cute little thing.
Yeah, I waited 40 years to watch this for a second time. That's probably, to support Chad, a good idea. But at the same time, I had a great time revisiting this. To me, this is kind of what a 70s film is like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are really great 70s horror films. I mean, some of them changed the face of horror. And then there are some really bad ones that stank it up. And then you have these kind of films that were just there, people trying to make a great story so they can send it out there and make a little money at, the drive-ins. And you get all these crazy, wacky ideas. Maybe they weren't ready to actually make a movie like this, but who knows? But this like children shouldn't play with dead things is by a far better film for a lot of reasons, but it has the same kind of atmosphere and
same aesthetic. Yeah.
And this movie is a great second billing on a double feature at a drive-in.
Oh yeah.
That's where it lives. That's where it lives. And you know what? I love it because of that. And like I said, guilty pleasure. This is one of those films for me. I have to.
Right there with
finally
you.
Came to that like 40 years later.
Yeah.
I guess I did because at first I was like,
the wheels of justice grind slowly.
Got mellow in my old age. You'll get there, Chad. You'll get there.
We do.
We're the same age.
Are we?
We're the same age now. Yeah.
Goddamn.
My birthday's in 11 days, so I'm not gonna be the same age I am now for very long.
Jeff Mohr, sir.
That's a deep statement there.
One thing that we love is feedback, and we got some feedback from a surprising person on a surprising episode. Would you like to share that with us, sir?
I would. So way back when, over 4 years ago, and I think it might have been my third episode of 70s, maybe, the giant spider invasion.
Oh,
a classic.
There's another guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah,
That's a good guilty pleasure. So
this comes from Dark Roast Documentaries, a gentleman named Bran, I think. He says, I know I'm 4 years late finding your website, but I just wanted to thank you for your coverage of Giant Spider Invasion. The film was made in my hometown, and I've spent the last 2 years collecting stories and behind-the-scenes pictures from the people involved in the filming for the book I'm writing on Rabane's career.
Excellent.
There are times when I wonder if anyone even cares about the history of these low-budget films. Hearing your podcast and knowing that there are people out there who appreciate the film for what it is was really the jolt of excitement I needed. Thank you.
cool.
Sir, when you get that book published, please let us know. I will buy an autographed copy. That sounds awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then he adds, for the record, there were 2 giant spider frames. One went on the Volkswagen, the driving spider, and another that was just a frame that was lifted with a crane. One frame still exists. The other was stolen and sold for scrap. The scrapyard workers thought it was just a jungle gym since all the fur had long since rotted away.
Oh. Didn't we get feedback years ago from somebody that lived in the town and about the theater? Because they were talking about
I think they have like a film festival, don't they?
Right. Yeah, so this is it's really interesting, like the films like that, these guilty pleasures, for lack of a better word.
It's got legs.
Yeah. This one had 6 to 8 depending on what
boom, good one. Well played, sir. That was the biggest thing that ever hit that town. That was
never saw him draw.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, that's it. That's our review.
And on that note,
thanks so much for that review. We'll keep an eye out for that documentary or that book. That would be cool. So
yes. So
please let us know.
If you've been listening this long, please hit the subscribe button so more people can find us. Hit the like, hit the dislike, leave some comments. We'd love your comments. We'll read them here if we got the time, which you don't really do. Bill, I'm just tickled. Bill, Jeff, Chad, my bud, thank you for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. The podcast was more fun than the movie for me.
Good pick. That's often the case. Oh, that's often the case.
I might still buy the Blu-ray.
Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.